And we're back again, everyone. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of some ages. I doubt I'm getting too many infants. Hello, Mary. Hello, Shadowed Fang. Hello to everyone. Glad to have you guys here with us tonight, where we are continuing our story. Spear of Destiny. Finding Bucephalus. But we already found Bucephalus, so isn't the story over? No, that's not the way stories work. I just don't understand. Well, I'm happy to have you guys here with me tonight for another round of our reading. There is a chance. I don't know how good of a chance, but there is a chance we finish the book tonight. We'll see how fast these last couple of chapters go. Maybe they go fast. Maybe they don't. Maybe there's one more session in here after this. You know you're going to have to stick around and find out. The only way to know for sure is to be here. You've been excited for this one. Fantastic, because it starts with just a little bit of breaking and entering. So let's talk a little bit about what happened on our last read. You know, you don't have to always just get my recaps. You could listen to the previous chapters right on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius. You could go buy the book, read the book. Great way to get a recap. Or, just very briefly, Kenneth and Mary Lou, otherwise known as Bucephalus, have been traveling through, shall we call them, the nether regions? Nah, that sounds dirty. They've been traveling through the other places, searching for the Spear of Destiny. They started out with Odin on their side, and then Odin broke off. And they started out with, her name, Ska Profala, on her side. I should remember it. And the name is just escaping me. This is why I love reading and things written down, because they're right there in front of me. She had to break off. Fate, a Valkyrie, was there with them, had to break off. And now it is just Scold. Thank you. I'm like, Ska. Yes, I love things written down. Makes my life so much easier. So Scold, they had Scold with them. And then Scold had to break off. Because the denizens, the demons and the daemons and the demoni and all of those types of people are getting a little uppity. They're doing things that they should not be doing. And so they must needs be dealt with. And that is what is happening to them as those people broke off. So we've had Roxy, who is a member of the Wild Hunt, a hound. We've had Kenneth in the form of Kenneth. We've had Mary Lou in the form of Bucephalus. And they have now gone through multiple places. They've met elves. They've traveled through dangerous places. They've met a giant spider. They've gone through trials and tribulations. And next, they continue their quest for the Spear of Destiny. Why do they need the Spear of Destiny, you ask? It's a fantastic question. If you'd been here through the entire book, you'd already know the answer. but I'll let you know anyway. Book 1, Spear of Chaos. I think it's Spear of Chaos, right? My memory is okay sometimes. Spear of Chaos is a spear that is doing tons of havoc and chaos, and they cannot seem to destroy the stupid thing. You know, it's made from the tree of life and all. Just those little things. The Spear of Destiny is supposed to help them to destroy the Spear of Chaos. But first, they have to find it. Now, what makes it the Spear of Destiny, you ask? Why, it was the spear that was stabbed into Jesus' side. It itself is quite an artifact. So they're looking for the Spear of Destiny to help against the Spear of Chaos. That is why they are on this dangerous, dangerous quest. About time for us to get started into the story for this week. Little housekeeping note. I do record all of these chapters, which means you are welcome to jump in with comments and questions and everything else. I will be happy to respond to them in between chapters. If you would like to have a fantastic conversation, come on over to the YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel, I have the author waiting here to talk to you, answer questions, maybe give you a little insight, tell you how things are pronounced. She does it to me all the time, which is exactly what I need from her. So it's fantastic. She has been a wonderful partner through this, and I cannot thank her enough for allowing me to read this book to all of you. But she's out there and ready for all of you. I, on the other hand, will be happy to talk to you in between chapters. And now, if you happen to be in a hot place, get yourself a cold drink. If you happen to be in a cold place, get yourself a hot drink. If you happen to be somewhere like I am at the moment, where it's like 59 degrees, which in New England is neutral for this time of year, get yourself a neutral drink. Might I recommend room temperature Monster? That's what I drink. Um, just, I always need something to drink as I'm going. But sit back, relax, and prepare to enjoy as we dive into our 8th reading session of Spear of Destiny, Finding Bucephalus, written for you by Mary Lou Wells, edited by Kira Holiday. And narrated in this instance by me. I guess depending on which side you're on, either up or down. Tim Maloney, professional narrator, live reader, bringing the written word to life. And now, let's go ahead and get ourselves started, shall we? With 16, Breaking and Entering. Somewhere in France, October 18th, 1986. Full moon. Good dog, Roxy, Kenneth told the hound. Now, how do we get in? One more jump? Roxy stood up and pointed toward the fortified compound with her nose, wagging her tail. Kenneth observed the ostentatious show of force before him. Pairs of armed guards patrolled the grounds in regular intervals. On the roof, anti-aircraft artillery scanned the skies. From their side of the veil, Kenneth could see lines of electric blue energy in angular geometric patterns. Powerful wards meant to prevent spiritual intrusion glimmered and flickered across the building's ornate facade. Thin filaments of energy stretched out to guard the wall and gate. This was a fact that the red cat sitting on top of the gate post ignored entirely. Okay, now how the hell did you get here before us? Kenneth asked the feline with a puzzled stare. The cat just yawned at him and flicked his ears in amusement. He settled down comfortably to watch the goings-on. Unlike everything else visible in the mortal realm, the cat was in full color and sharp focus to Kenneth's vision. He shook his head in wonderment and turned his attention back to the problem of getting in. Kenneth knew that the guards could not see him, even sitting astride a huge black horse at their gates, because of the separation created by approaching from the other side of the astral veil. But that did not get them through those iron gates. "Can we make the jump straight to it?" Kenneth asked the dog. Roxy dropped her head and tucked her tail in response, half closing her bright eyes. When she wagged her tail and woofed, Kenneth knew he had his answer. "Guess not, huh? Okay, so now what? Maybe we break in?" "The polite thing to do would be to knock," a matter-of-fact voice said from behind them. All three of them were startled. "Who the hell?" Kenneth said as he turned around. Since they were supposed to be concealed from mortal sight as part of the rules of the Wild Hunt, he knew it would have to be someone also on their side of the veil. The light brightened to a brilliant white, and a winged figure stepped through the light into their presence. The one who stood before them bore only a faint resemblance to the romanticized depictions of angels. Stocky and clad in full armor, he bore a large sword and a slight frown. 3 sets of enormous, graceful, arched wing frames framed him, declaring his identity. He exuded an air of power and authority. He glared at Kenneth sternly. "Not remotely." "Oh, yeah, sorry," Kenneth said. The Archangel Michael nodded. "Considering that we are kind of technically breaking and entering, knocking on the door may not be in our best interest," Kenneth responded. "The Spear of Destiny is a prize that men have sought after for 2 millennia now. What makes you any more worthy of holding it than they?" the Archangel challenged. "That's a loaded question," Kenneth answered. "But there's that whole saving the world thing. We needed to stop Loki from getting his hands on the Spear of Chaos." Kenneth blinked in the brilliant light surrounding the Archangel. "Besides, I'll give it back. Ruling the world would be way too much paperwork, and I hate paperwork." "You will put it back where you find it?" the Archangel inquired leadingly. "Yeah. Well, maybe." "No, not exactly." Kenneth stumbled over his answer. One thing he was good at was quick thinking on his feet. "I have a better idea. It doesn't belong in the hands of men." "Go on," the Archangel encouraged. "So, my thinking is we just make it disappear," Kenneth responded. "And how do you plan on doing that?" the Archangel asked. "Why are you asking me questions you already know answers to?" Kenneth asked in return. "You may not ignore the dangers for all involved in that action," the Archangel declared. "The consequences would be an unbalancing of power the world over, and as you are currently in Flesh Earthside, neither you nor your friends have the foresight required to understand all repercussions, good or bad, from taking it from one seat of world power. That is for our Heavenly Father to decide," he declared with finality. "Let God give it to whoever he wants to. But considering the state the world is already in, it doesn't need to stay here. I'm betting you happen to agree, or you wouldn't be here. And we wouldn't have gotten this far already," the teen pointed out. "Perhaps, but you still have not answered my question," the Archangel pointed out. "By making everybody think they already have it when they don't," Kenneth stated. "To hold the Spear of Destiny is a heavy responsibility. And you can find yourself driven to extremes by light, as well as darkness. Either way leads to madness, Michael told him. Not to point out the painfully obvious or anything, but I'm standing here arguing with an archangel, trying to get my hands on the Spear of Destiny so that I can destroy the Spear of Chaos and prevent the end of the world. I'd say I've already crossed the madness and extremes category. Besides, you already know everything that can be known about me in the first place. I think we can both agree that I am not the poster child for mental stability, Kenneth pointed out. The Archangel's lip twitched in amusement. Agreed. Kenneth dismounted from Bucephalus and went to one knee. With God as my witness, when this is done, I promise to place the Spear of Destiny where no one will ever find it, even if they are looking right at it. You're going to find yourself with an overwhelming number of enemies, the Archangel said. Yeah, I know. But other than being the poster child for the mentally unstable, the other thing I seem to be really good at is pissing people off. Kenneth grinned unrepentantly. Just as long as it's not the wrong people, the Archangel said pointedly. Yeah, well, there is that. Kenneth pushed his hair back from his face and nodded agreement. The Archangel Michael laid his hand on top of Kenneth's head. Warrior to warrior, Michael said, I will hold you to your vow. I will also want this back. He took off his sword and placed it in Kenneth's hand when he stood. Eldritch fire burned along the blade in bright, shifting colors. You would give me your sword? Kenneth was shocked into stillness. He thought after all he'd already been through, nothing could surprise him. You will need it where you are going, the Archangel said firmly, and also handed him the baldric. Kenneth caught his breath and felt his muscles tighten with the threat that implied. Yep, now I'm really screwed, he said. You can always change your mind or turn back, the Archangel reminded him. Yeah, that whole free will thing is a bitch. But I'm already here, so let's do it, Kenneth replied. The Spear of Chaos is already in the hands of the enemy, the Archangel warned him. It has been taken since you left the earthly realm. You must recover it before it reaches the depths of Loki's domain. The Archangel Michael turned to the wrought iron gates and touched them. A pulse of light flashed, and the runes rearranged themselves throughout the property. You may enter, General Hasset, he told Kenneth formally, and stepped back through the bright light. Go with the blessing of our Father. See ya, brother, Kenneth answered, and then waved, but Michael was already gone. With the protections triggered, the barriers no longer held them back. The three of them easily and silently slipped inside, with Roxy leading the way as she followed her nose to their goal. Ahead of them was a large, empty, grassy area which would have provided no cover to anyone just walking in. However, since Kenneth, Bucephalus, and Roxy were incorporeally operating on the other side of the veil, Kenneth believed no one would see them. However, halfway across the yard, he discovered that the usual rules were only partially suspended in their case. A heavily armed guard was blissfully unaware of their passage and could not see the dog. He tripped over Roxy and fell flat on his face. In the compound guard room, unusual movement on the security cameras caught the attention of the officer on duty. The captain punched his radio. What the hell is going on out there? He demanded. Sorry, sir. I tripped over something, crackled the answer. That was some trip, Parks, the captain replied. There's nothing there but flat ground. Well, our distinguished guests are here. Is no time to be playing around. If it happens again, there'll be hell to pay. Got it? Yes, sir, the hapless guard answered. He gazed intently at the ground around him, puzzled. He barely caught the edge of the officer's next exclamation. "Sir?"
Son of a bitch!
Zooming and backing off the camera didn't bring the fuzzy spots of moving light into better focus. There were 3 of them, 1 large and 2 smaller ones, coasting unhindered toward the building. One was the general shape and size of a man.
Ghosts? In broad daylight?
He switched to infrared, blinked, and shook his head to try to clear his eyes. He had heard of cameras being able to pick up spirits in certain lighting conditions, but he'd never seen it himself. In his position, he could afford no mistakes.
Parks, turn around and tell me what you see,
the captain barked the order into his radio. Nothing, sir, but the empty yard, the guard the officer addressed answered. Although what I tripped over felt big and solid, there's nothing. The captain considered for a moment. He refused to call an alarm for ghosts. A decorated military veteran didn't believe in such things. He dismissed it as a trick of the light. Nevertheless, he switched one of the cameras to infrared and made sure the rest were recording as he sat back and watched the invisible man, horse, and dog walk right up to the building. When the spots on the camera reached the door, he suddenly got an uncomfortable feeling in his gut. A buzzer sounded on his desk.
Shit!
The captain jumped up.
That's not ghosts! Somebody's got some kind of personal cloaking device!
Seconds later, he hit the radio alert.
Hey, Wing! We got possible intruders! Mason, I need you and Langford to check out the alert on door A7. Handle it quietly, but see it's handled.
He glared at the camera, unable to leave his post to see for himself. Sir, we've done a thorough search and turned up nothing, Mason radioed back to the guardroom several minutes later. It's most likely a malfunction.
Fine. I'll call maintenance,
the captain stated. Puzzled, he still hovered over the cameras. He could no longer see any anomaly present.
Trick of the light.
He shrugged and shook himself as a chill made his hair rise on end. He was halfway to reaching for his phone when he witnessed his man suddenly go flying off his feet and slam hard into a wall as he was walking past a set of guarded double doors. Langford had been following closely behind. While he wasn't hit by his partner, he also fell over something invisible in the hallway, much like the unlucky guard earlier. In a state of grim dread, the officer smacked the emergency button.
What the hell? He started yelling. Someone or something has made it into the building. I want every security officer in A to get off your asses to the round room. No!
The captain cursed as he saw the 2 guards posted outside the doors to the round room also go down as if something had hold of them. How were they supposed to fight an invisible enemy? Given what he knew was inside that room, he struggled not to hyperventilate. He and his team would be lucky not to leave in body bags tonight if the compound's owner found out. Bucephalus didn't quite look contrite after double-barrel kicking the guard who had run into his hindquarters. Kenneth wiped his hands after disabling the second guard. I can't let you have all the fun, Kenneth whispered to his horse. They can't see us, but at least we can still affect our environment. This is a good thing, methinks. It reminds me of when we took down Ulfr and brought the astral and earth planes together to take out his body and soul at the same time. The rules here seem to be similar. Roxy jumped up on the door and scratched it, then turned to look at Kenneth expectantly. Is this it? He asked her. The dog gave a sharp bark of acknowledgment. All righty then, let's get what we came for, Kenneth said. He opened the double doors just as another group of guards rounded the corner with their guns drawn. They pulled up short when they didn't see anything but their comrades on the floor unconscious, but breathing, and the doors opening on their own. In the confusion, Kenneth simply strolled into the room. The round room was aptly named. It was deeply carpeted in plush burgundy red with gold accents on the chairs and mahogany-paneled walls. A skull and crossbones flag hung on one wall with flags of nations, photographs of world leaders and CEOs past and present. The central feature of the room, however, is what drew the eye. A glass case containing a single item was sitting in the middle of a round stone table that almost filled the room. Around the table, filling plush chairs, were the presidents and dignitaries who provided the power behind the thrones and elected governments the world over. A former president of the United States stood leaning over the table with his finger pointed at a red-faced man wearing white robes and a headscarf. "We agreed to your request, Mr. President," the man replied to the American. "It is not our fault your free press is making news of our arms for hostages deal. Perhaps if you put those dogs on a leash and execute your American personnel with loose lips, you can put a stop to this nonsense."
"We don't do that in America," the president declared. "We have constitutional protection of our press."
"You mean you don't let anyone know you do it? At least in Iran, we don't hide behind party politics and lie about it." The man stopped and considered his next words. "Then I would suggest that to save face, prosecute your military commander. Put the blame there and take the attention away from anyone in this group or President Reagan." Leaning over the table, about to reply, the American was the first to notice something amiss when the clasp fell open on the glass case in front of him. Long the assurance of the group's world domination, the Spear of Destiny was their prized possession. Confiscated at the end of World War II from the Nazis after Hitler's fight with the Rothschild kin, it had been brought here and placed under lock and key for many generations. "Sorry, gentlemen, to steal your prize," Kenneth said, "but you clearly do not have the wisdom to carry this." Kenneth didn't feel sorry at all. But hey, it sounded good, he laughed to himself. He opened the case carefully in front of all the shocked faces in the room. Of all the things that could bring them to their feet, the Spear of Destiny vanishing into thin air from its resting place was one of them. The expected shouting started. Kenneth grinned.
"Which of you is responsible for this?"
the American demanded. "You thief!" the Iranian accused him. The mood in the room went downhill from there, with everyone shouting. Kenneth jumped off the table, quickly mounted Bucephalus, and with Roxy following, they ran out into the dusk. The security officers in the meeting room were left in disarray behind them. The lone watcher of the cameras watched them go until they disappeared through the compound's iron gates. A bright light flashed briefly and was gone, along with the Spear of Destiny. A warm wind blew over the fields of summer, ruffling the high grass. Barely perceptible, the fabric of the world rippled. For the first time in a millennium, mortals had crossed the veil. Kibichet caught her breath. The amount of power required to bring such a thing into being was absurd. Foreboding spread frost over her heart. Over the ages, she had learned to trust these feelings. Something was going to go badly wrong, though she did not yet know what. The light of two moons shone down from above. Beautiful blue trumpet-shaped flowers hung from the vines draped over silver birch trees, nourishing rather than strangling them. This was Kibichet's place, the garden that she and her father had coaxed to life from nothing. Tiamori's large golden eyes watched her anxiously as he waited for some sort of result from her use of far sight. The panther-like spirit shifted uncomfortably, trying to remove pressure from the stump of his missing paw, which was slowly regenerating. An ambush had ended their joint hunt for the Spear of Chaos. Only Tiamori's quick thinking and reflexes had kept a hydra from taking Kibichet's head off, though not without cost to himself. Kibichet's feline ears twitched as the excited baying of hunting hounds echoed across her mindscape. She had been sitting here for what seemed like hours, but may have been days, watching all the trouble her chosen soul sib could get herself into. There were so many twists and turns of possibility. The truth of destiny and free will being what it was, neither held full domination. She frowned as she rose from her meditative stance. Visions and farsight would not suffice for this.
Lost in thought, my daughter?
Anubis inquired as he entered Kibachet's favorite meditation garden beside the temple, barely sparing a glance for the dark spirit which lay beside her.
I hear, my father.
Kibachet nodded, turning to face him.
You've been worrying,
Anubis observed.
So have you,
she told him. Anubis's rich chuckle filled the air.
Perhaps, but idle worrying will not do anyone any good.
A faint smile curled the edges of Kibachet's mouth.
That never seems to stop either of us.
Her expression turned serious again.
I do not want this to end with sacrifice. Far too much has already been lost to the Demoni and the Dread Lord's mad ambition.
Anubis sighed out in a long exhale, centering himself before responding.
Your chosen sister and her bonded will do as they must, as they always have. Nothing is yet certain, my daughter.
They are strong, and the fate favors them.
But there is darkness tugging at the edges of my vision, something hidden from my sight. You fear the outcome.
It was not a question. She turned, looking into the twilit forest that she had shaped to remind her of her devastated homeland.
Yes.
Kibachet sighed deeply and turned to Spirit of Sorrow, who had been listening.
I thank you for your aid, Tiamori,
she said. She returned to the spirit's side under Anubis's watchful gaze.
Quite honestly, the situation is looking bleak. I cannot in good conscience ask more of you than you have already given.
Lady, Tiamori began formally,
you have given far more than a thing like me would have ever thought to ask. You could ask a great deal more of me, and still it would not be enough.
Kibachet's brows furrowed as she tried to puzzle out what the spirit meant by his words. She almost felt like crying when she realized that she was probably the closest thing to a friend that Tiamori had ever encountered, even though their acquaintance began with her trying to kill him. Anubis bent down on one knee and looked into Tiamori's eyes.
You are far more than you believe yourself to be, dear child. We do not reckon debt amongst friends, and make no mistake.
He paused.
A friend is what my daughter considers you to be.
Tiamori caught the psychic scent of tears unshed as Kibachet tried to hide the sorrow that her startled realization had caused. Dumbfounded, Tiamori struggled for the words to respond to Anubis.
To be a daemon is to fight for food and power, to kill anything that gets in the way. There is nothing else. I don't know. I haven't.
Tiamori's throat closed so he couldn't speak.
I understand, but it doesn't have to be that way,
Anubis told him gently. Tiamori sat up straighter.
What do you mean?
His golden eyes reflected the glow of Anubis's fiery intensity. He could feel the energy crackle around him as he was being read.
While your exterior is dark, you are not completely so. Even if you were, redemption and grace are universally available to even the Demoni. The difference being receiving it or not is choice. It is a gift, not an affliction, and must be accepted, or it shall not be received.
Kibachet spoke up.
You don't realize it, but you made your choice long before you met me. You chose how to sustain yourself, and instead of leaving a trail of death behind, you aided those you could. I didn't need to kill them.
But I did take from them, and isn't stealing things supposed to be wrong? Timori asked plaintively. Kibachet laughed brightly. Oh, darling, that's exactly my point. A daemon wouldn't care. So, then, what am I? Timori asked with a puzzled frown. Kibachet answered with a mischievous grin. You are my friend. We can figure the rest out later. She grew more serious. But time is short, I'm afraid. We must prepare for war. We failed to find the Spear of Chaos, so war is inevitable with that loose in the worlds. But you, my friend, it will be some time before you are again able for battle. She stopped while he thought through what she said. When he nodded agreement, she continued. Because of this, I don't think it will remain safe for you here. Too many powers will see the color of your coat, and not your core. You may rest here for a time, though, and I will leave it to you to decide when you are ready to go. I'm not going to throw you out as if I don't have any more use for you. You deserve better than that. Timori inclined his head in assent. I understand. Anubis and Kibachet returned to the temple. Timori calmly watched them as they left him alone in the garden. There we go, guys. Chapter 16, done and in the books. Bone Dog THB, how are you? If you're still here in Twitch, hello, hello. Glad to have you here. Glad to have all of you here with me tonight, wherever you happen to be. If you are in Twitch, TikTok, if you are in Kick, Rumble, YouTube, X, wherever you happen to be, hey, thanks for being here with us. I greatly appreciate it. Let's see. Did we get any comments that that people have questions? No. Why? How sad. But we're here. The author is here. We're reading the book. Don't you have questions? You know you should. You know you want to. Let's bring them along. Shall we? Yes. And if not, hey, we'll get right back into more Spear of Chaos momentarily. Dun, dun, dun. Spear of Chaos. Spear of Destiny. We're reading Spear of Destiny. Spear of Destiny. Finding Bucephalus' Bucephalus. Have you ever found your Bucephalus? No? Let's go ahead and continue on, shall we? And, by the way, tell Ken I approve of his choice. But I like monsters better than Red Bulls myself. It might be a me thing. 17. The Abyss Chase. Twisted and bent, the Wraith was an ugly little thing. He grunted and moaned. He found that licking his intense sunburn didn't ease the pain of his smoking hide. Finally, he had settled into an awkward scamper as he used his fourth limb to keep a tight grip on the stolen Spear of Chaos. The spear pulsed with bloodlust and desire, lending the demon a glut of power. It reminded him of the magnificent creature he had once been until he was thrown down upon earth, drowned in the great flood, and cursed to a half-life with the other Nephilim, considered an abomination. Like most of his brethren, he was brought low by his base desires. Even with a new name, he was denied all but bare sustenance to exist until he withered away to this thing he could not recognize. He growled at the unfairness of it all.
No more, he whispered. I am doing things my way, and no one will be able to stop me now. I will feast, and I will drink rivers of blood and death. I will rule them all. They will pay dearly for what they have done to me.
He snarled and jumped to the space between the worlds. He could easily escape any pursuit that would surely follow on his way to rule the realm of darkness.
And then I will make the very gods pay, and they will watch their precious earth ruined, so that all the abyss can feast on its rotting bones. I will begin with the traitors who went crawling to the All-Father, begging forgiveness and offering their pitiful allegiance.
Roxy made 2 more jumps into different levels of the multiverse. Kenneth and Bucephalus were hot on her heels. She ran along a star stream with her nose in the air as she quested for the second artifact. The dog's hair rose along her spine as she slowed and showed her gleaming white teeth. Her low growl turned to a snarl. "That doesn't sound good," Kenneth said. "What is it, Roxy?" The hound's eyes shone like blue stars. It was almost blinding in the low light. She barked once sharply and slung her head for them to follow her. She gathered herself in a mighty leap. A step behind her, Kenneth had the odd sensation of endlessly falling through all the other levels. Though there was no air to catch them, Bucephalus involuntarily spread his wings and flattened his ears with displeasure. Momentarily, Bucephalus's hooves touched solid rock. His horse moved so quickly that Kenneth's attempt to take stock of their surroundings was foiled by having to grab the saddle to keep his seat. Roxy already had a hold of a nasty-looking little creature and was making an admirable attempt to tear its leg off when Bucephalus dove for its throat.
Bad, horrid, filthy dog!
It shouted with a low-pitched, guttural scream. It swung the Spear of Chaos wildly at Roxy's head, but missed. Kenneth's grab for the spear also missed. He shifted his grip on the Spear of Destiny and swung it, but the daemon was out of reach. The Dark Spirit had managed to drag himself and the Hound of the Wild Hunt to the very edge of a broken black crevasse. Roxy, however, refused to let go, and a chunk of putrid-looking flesh came off. The piece evaporated in noxious black smoke. The spirit screamed as it jumped into the blackness below, and Roxy's snarls turned to a whine. She backed away from the edge of the drop-off and tucked her tail. The dog threw herself down, panting. "You didn't follow, so I guess there's some reason you can't," Kenneth asked the hound. Her sad look and the diminished glow of her eyes said volumes. "We have to get that spear," Kenneth declared, and shoved his heels into Bucephalus urgently. "Oh, well, here goes nothing." Bucephalus hesitated despite his rider's urging. He stared at the broken and barren landscape. Darkness pushed and tore at his core as it tried to pull him in. Energy blacker than his hide oozed and dripped like oil. Even the very stone he stood upon seemed warped and stretched somehow. He shook his head, throwing his mane in Kenneth's face. Even gravity seemed to want to pull him into the dark maw. The stallion spread his wings wide and reared to full height, bellowing challenge. There was no answer as he came back to all fours and sidestepped. The horse sensed that ambush and danger awaited if it jumped. The old soul part of his self recognized this place. It told him they would never see the light of day again if they entered. Kenneth was having the same feeling as he noticed every detail. Where they stood was only the beginning of the broken landscape. This appeared to be the entrance. Beyond the rift created by the death of a star were broken floating land masses. It was as if some planet had exploded and its twisted remnants suspended in midair. Everything as far as the eye could see warped and spiraled slowly as the trap became visible. Unlike the Summerland, there was no cohesion. He could see just emptiness and desolation. The teen could only imagine what they'd find inside that rift. Kenneth knew there was only one reason Roxy would stop here. The Abyss, home of the Demoni, the outer darkness. It had many names, he mused, but all of them were bound into one inescapable problem. They were out here, and their goal had been dragged into the depths of hell by a demon. "Oh, Okay, so that's what hell looks like, Kenneth muttered to himself. And I suppose that's what everything else will look like if we don't do this. Fun, fun, he said sarcastically. Kenneth urged Bucephalus forward again. The horse obediently gathered himself for one more leap. This time, as they fell, their descent was slower. Initially, it was like sinking through a thick black fluid. Below, a vast landmass caught them before they could descend to another level underneath. They were practically right on top of what appeared to be one of the numerous teeming cities that were concentrated around the points of entry of the tainted energy that oozed into the abyss from multiple sources. In some places, as they searched for where the demon may have taken the spear, it appeared to rain blood. In others, the rocks hissed as acid ran in rivulets and tar bubbled in pools. There appeared to be no living thing except for misshapen beings that fed upon taint or abided in the filth. Most of these residents shrank away in fear as they passed, too minor in strength to take on the intruders, too self-absorbed or too busy fighting over the scraps of death that were left by stronger demons. Some of them simply preyed upon others for food. There were no plants for Bucephalus to nibble and no clear water for either of them to drink. Everywhere they looked, they saw only ruin. Better to rule in hell than serve in heaven? Yeah, that guy was a fucking idiot. Kenneth looked to one side, then the other. What a shithole. Hey, don't step in that! Kenneth wrinkled his nose as his horse avoided another pit, only to find something foul-smelling and sticky dripping on them from somewhere above. The only light other than Bucephalus's blue hair clip was a sickly greenish-purple glow, and Kenneth could see no signs of fire anywhere. Well, so much for hellfire and brimstone, he observed wryly. Anyone stuck here if they don't get eaten first would simply die of boredom. Ew, this is gross. He attempted to wipe himself off and only managed to smear the filth further across his face. Their progress was slow, but they continued until they started hearing screams ahead. The terrain flattened out onto a smooth desert plain of bare stone and sand, with the central demonic city of the first level of the abyss to their left. All Kenneth and Bucephalus could see was a writhing mass of creatures biting and clawing one another in a huge pile. More demoni ran toward the fracas, while others, the smarter or stronger ones, hung back. These waited, watched for their chance, but were unwilling to risk their own hide. I think we found it, Kenneth said to Bucephalus quietly. I'd almost be willing to bet that's what's got all their tails in the air. When they got a little closer, several bloodthirsty demoni noticed them at the same time and broke off for what they thought was easier prey. Kenneth's brown eyes narrowed as he growled through a feral grin. Come on, you bastards! We ain't here for the view! Suddenly, they were swarmed. Bucephalus took the straightforward approach and charged into the mass of them, stomping viciously. He grabbed something with wings as it tried to launch itself into the air, and ripped its arm off by the simple expedient of not letting go with his teeth and standing on it. The next one was on them in a flash. When it latched on with its claws and went for the horse's jugular, Kenneth stopped swinging the Spear of Destiny. He drew his khopesh and ripped the daemon off by its throat with the hook of the Egyptian sword. As it fell, one of its fellows grabbed it. This one tried to drag it away to eat, and another mass of fighting broke out as others attempted to steal the prize. They took advantage of the distraction to drive further forward into the fighting. There seemed to be no rhyme or reason to the carnage, as the demoni were just as willing to attack and kill each other as they were the man and horse. Bucephalus repeatedly reared and plunged. The horse kicked out behind him to clear space and kept the scrabbling horde off his hamstrings. Kenneth wielded the spear and the Egyptian sword on his back, which worked well in close and for swinging. He speared two at once as his horse achieved a little space to push forward. He found the demoni backing off, squealing at something else that had joined the battle. He pulled the Spear of Destiny free, shoved the Khopesh home in its sheath, and drew the Archangel's sword. The light it gave off was terrible to the Demoni, accustomed as they were to the darkness. Many scattered back in terror or burst into flames, immolated instantly. In front of them, one daemon, stronger and more vicious than the rest, had come up from the bottom of the pile holding the Spear of Chaos. It bellowed triumphantly and faced them without fear. This spirit refused to shrink back from the light of the holy weapons Kenneth still held. Elsewhere in the multiverse, slit-pupiled green eyes watched events unfold through a silver scrying pool. Void-black walls reflected light from luminescent white crystals set into the sconces, where gracefully curved arches supported a domed ceiling.
Damn it! Isa, my sister! What are you thinking?
A taloned hand viciously carved a path through the air in frustration. Tension rippled through Kibichet's body as she began to pace, not taking her eyes off the scene below her.
She is lost to us, Father.
Kibichet nearly keened with grief.
Isa has gone where we cannot follow.
Anubis's eyes narrowed, tracing the path of the warding runes on the pool's edge. They flared with golden fire, the only thing preventing the abyss from leaking through the tenuous connection that scrying created.
It is not that one could not follow her, my daughter. The difficulty lies in getting back out again. The rifts into the abyss are quite eager to swallow everything they can, and are loath to give anything back,
Anubis responded. A snarl ripped through Kibichet's throat as she continued to pace, still glaring into the pool.
Of course they are. Such is the nature of anything created by that fell realm. It isn't as if they are true gates.
Feeling her father's eyes on her from across the pool, she stilled and looked at him. He met her gaze with calm patience, the edges of a grin curling around his muzzle.
A gate, she thought aloud. A single point in space and time, existing in two places simultaneously. Perhaps... What if I said that it was impossible?
Anubis echoed her words from millennia before. Kibichet recalled the answer he had given her clearly, even to that moment.
Then I would say that something being impossible is an oxymoron, a paradox, a contradiction in terms.
Considering her options, she closed her eyes and reached for her gift of foresight. She hissed when the images refused to settle into a definite path. The chaotic nature of the abyss itself and the volatile situation prevented cohesion.
Of course, it wouldn't be that easy, she grumbled, opening her eyes. I won't leave her down there, my father. I can't. No good can come of them, or the artifacts lingering there.
Anubis nodded. She let out a cry of pain as her mind, already treading along the paths of possibility, tapped into the next logical connection. The vision's foresight was so intense that it burned as it drew her under. Kenneth groaned and attempted to clear his head. The Spear of Destiny and the Archangel's sword were still firmly in his grip. He'd been determined not to let go when the spears crossed. His flesh smelled burnt. While his face and chest were certainly in enough pain, his neck was the worst. The skin of his neck cracked and bled sluggishly as he attempted to move. He managed to roll over stiffly from where the blast had thrown him and took stock of the situation. Enemies surrounded him. They were thrown and scattered from the force of the blast. Some appeared to be dead, while others moved and twitched weakly. He could not see Bucephalus, but there was a white bundle of something several feet away. He pulled himself by his elbows and knees toward the pale figure. His head was still spinning too much to try to get to his feet. Venom dripped from several bite wounds, but he ignored those when he realized who it was that lay so deadly still. White feathers with a golden sheen half covered her face. Reaching out, Kenneth gently brushed the edge of her wing aside. "Isa?" he breathed in shock. "How?" He realized she was still unconscious from the blast. Placing a hand on the skin of her arm, he felt the live wire tingle of her energy. He sighed in relief, flopping loosely. The wing that had curled over her was unharmed, but the other one that was crumpled beneath her appeared broken. "God, no!" he exclaimed. "Why did it have to be you? Why didn't I see it?" She began to stir, and after forcing himself not to hyperventilate, he got a hold of himself. "Mary Lou, get up!" Kenneth demanded. "This is no time to lie about." He reached out to shake her gently awake. She moved slightly and opened her eyes. He was nearly undone at her first confused words. "Ah, Set?" She attempted to sit up and squealed in pain as the bones in her broken wing ground together. "It's Kenneth," he replied. "You're hurt." Mary Lou favored him with a sour look. "Obviously." "Are you up to using a sword?" he asked her. "I can do anything I have to," she insisted. "This isn't the first time I've lost the use of this wing in battle." She looked over her shoulder above the current break at a large scar from an old daemon bite. "One of the dark ones caught me unawares from above and brought me down. Kibachet healed it well enough for flight." "Who's that?" he asked. "Ka Ali, of course. You remember her?" "Oh, that stuck-up priestess of Bastet you liked?" Kenneth grimaced. "I try not to." Mary Lou glared at him. "She's my best friend, Ken." Kenneth decided to settle for something less confrontational. He knew she would argue with him regardless. "Here, let me help you up." She squealed again when he put his arms around her to gently lift her to her feet. The pain seemed to radiate through her whole back. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" he asked her. "We need to get moving." Some of the demoni around them were starting to groan and move in more than twitches. He hissed as she leaned on his shoulder for support, putting pressure on one of his wounds that wept black ichor. Mary Lou almost recoiled in concern. "You're hurt too," she said. "It's fine," he responded with a groan. "We don't have time to worry about that right now." Kenneth's eyes narrowed as he saw the marks under her jaw from where he hadn't been quick enough with the khopesh to keep the daemon off her neck. Black, tainted blood dripped down her collarbone. They looked at each other as a low, throaty growl sounded just behind them. Mary Lou nearly fell but caught herself. She could feel the familiar sensation of the taint seeping in. She concentrated what energy she could spare around the bite, but didn't have the strength left to take care of it properly. This time, there was no one to burn out the poison. Kenneth considered his options briefly and handed her the khopesh sword. "Here, make good use of this." "Anything else?" she asked him. "Yeah," he said firmly. "Don't get dead." "Michael? Mike?" Kenneth peered intently up the rift they'd entered. "A little help here? We could use an angel about now." He waited several seconds for a response, then turned his attention to the matter at hand. The Ugermach was still somewhat disoriented, but it recovered quickly from a stumble as it crept upon them. Its vaguely canine head dripped acid over its scaled hide from serrated teeth, and it lashed its serpent tail wildly, seeking prey to bite. At Michael's name, it cowered back and also looked up. It growled just before it sprang on them. The rest of the demoni who weren't killed in the initial blast circled in agitation. They sought the dark power source that was gone, but they were not brave enough as yet to enter the radius of the blast zone. Sensing weakness, the daemon jumped at the angel's broken wing. He knocked her down, but not before she split his skull with the sword she held. Determined not to go down without a fight, she climbed painfully to her feet again without Kenneth's help. She stood back to back with him, attempting to ignore her pain so she could concentrate on the battle at hand. She glared intently at the circle of masked opponents and dared them to come. Kenneth was angry. No, more than that. He was enraged.
"A little help would be nice,"
he complained. "We were on our own as soon as we came here," Mary Lou whispered in a low tone. "Nobody's coming," she said. "They can't." She looked in dismay at her wings as her feathers turned from their natural shimmery white to a dull gray. Her light dimmed with the taint in her energy body. She was now in her true soul form, forced out of any shape-shifting to protect herself from the explosion. There was no more hiding any part of her nature. Esau could not deny her impending end. She could feel the darkness beginning to seep through her. It was only a matter of time before she would either turn and become a true creature of evil or simply fade. Her heart fell. She knew what she had to do.
"Fine, then,"
Kenneth said. He ground his teeth.
"We don't need them anyway."
The sting of his bite marks just seemed to give his anger strength. This was at least a familiar feeling. The Spear of Chaos had often whispered to him in his sleep to let his anger free. He unleashed it with a bellow.
"We will take as many of them down with us as we can."
More of the Demoni overcame their hesitation. 2 Urgermach, larger, stronger, and smarter than the rest by virtue of their pure-blood demon status, jumped out of the pack. A tall, dark-cloaked shadow behind them bolstered them. The smaller of the 2 displayed quickness and grace in its feints and false attacks. They toyed with their prey, trying to draw them away from each other for easier pickings. The larger tired of the game and attacked Kenneth directly. Kenneth met the daemon's fangs with the Spear of Destiny, knocking it rolling as it sizzled and howled.
"Yeah, who's next?"
Kenneth swung at the next one with the sword and speared another. Behind him, Mary Lou had her hands full. She fought the agile Urgermach, barely missing time and again. The world blurred as the taint slowed her reflexes and stiffened her muscles. The daemon was swift, and her responses weren't quick enough. It finally got inside her guard. She screamed as it held her down, while the fanged tail struck again and again. It finally let go and fell still as its jaws and throat burned away from the inside, the poison of her light tearing through its darkness. Kenneth speared it to be sure it was dead, but it had accomplished its purpose. The angel lay gasping. The very air of this place was tainted. Her feathers turned a darker gray, with the tips going black. She found herself without the strength to lift the sword. "You've got to end this." She looked up at Kenneth. "I'm turning."
"Mary Lou, Issa, no, get up. We can still fight."
"Kill me now, before I turn completely," she said. "I can feel the hate and rage taking over. I don't want to live like that for eternity."
"No, you can fight it. It's not who you are. Please."
Kenneth reached down, intending to pull her to her feet, and nearly recoiled. Her gold-flecked eyes were turning black, and she opened her mouth to show dagger-like fangs. She hissed at him.
"You must."
Kenneth pulled her close instead.
"No, Issa, stay with me. Don't you dare die on me again."
He closed his eyes and kissed her forehead. Her light brightened, and her eyes cleared. "All set. I'm sorry." She tenderly brushed a stray sprig of sticky hair back from his face. "Perhaps you can get out of this place somehow. If I don't make it, remember me, okay? Go give 'em hell." She closed her eyes. With supreme effort, Issa gathered the last of her light and attempted to burn the poison out. Her hair and her wings turned white. She glowed with the fire of a star. For a moment, it seemed as if she would succeed. Then, as she pulled the core of her being in tight, she burned out in the attempt and lost any pretense at cohesion. She simply burst apart like fireworks in Kenneth's arms. Beautiful specks of glittery light rained down on the whole area. Wherever a spark of light touched Damon, it burned mercilessly. Howling, writhing demoni added to the chaos. Their fellows tried to avoid being hit, even as they spread the bright sparks everywhere in their panic. Where sparks touched sand, a white crystal grew. Even a pit of tar turned to clear, pure water when several sparks landed in it. The small light banished its darkness. The loss was nearly too much for Kenneth to bear when he felt the soul link vanish. Remember her? God, how could he not? In some lives, deadly enemies. In others, lovers. In some, simply friends or family. But always dancing together through time, meeting their destinies, learning and growing and struggling. He had pushed her away because this was a loss he had never wanted to face.
I will never have the chance to tell her,
he said with a growl.
They are going to pay for that.
When he looked up, his eyes were completely black as he finally unleashed his full rage. He picked up the Spear of Destiny and walked determinedly forward. He decided that the tall figure who seemed to be directing the chaos would be a good place to start. Kenneth waded into battle, with vengeance being the only thing that mattered. He wielded the Spear of Destiny wildly, killing anything that got close enough. If it wasn't close, he chased it down. He fought for a long time. He wasn't sure if it was hours, days, or months, but he simply kept killing until the horde scattered. Finally, covered in demon filth and with his many wounds throbbing, Kenneth stopped before the Dread Lord. The Archon simply watched and waited as he had when the Spear of Chaos entered the realm. He could afford to be patient after all. He knew his enemy had nowhere to run, and his rage suited his purposes admirably. The Dread Lord might let the thing live. He could be an interesting tool. He considered the one who stood before him. Kenneth pointed the Spear of Destiny at the Dread Lord.
You're next,
he growled.
Well, General,
the Dread Lord answered him calmly.
Just how do you think you are going to do that without a holy weapon to aid you? And this time, you have not the army of Egypt, Rome, Macedonia, or Japan at your back. There are no other angels here to help you either. That would be an interesting trick, don't you think?
What are you talking about?
Kenneth sneered.
Oh, come now, the Dreadlord answered. You have performed admirably. Your soulmate would be proud, would she not? How many of my simple demoni did you kill? Hundreds? How perfect.
You don't care? How could you be so cold-hearted? Those were your soldiers.
Kenneth was puzzled. Weren't they at least of a kind?
Oh, I don't care about them,
the Dreadlord purred throatily.
They are bait. The question is, how can you be so cruel, yes? They are living creatures like yourself, who deserve a chance.
Don't twist my words,
Kenneth spat. The Dreadlord laughed as if at an inside joke.
General, for all your expertise, you still don't understand, do you? They may have been demoni, but you gave your soul to us just the same when you became like them.
And it so happens the sword of my nemesis and the spear you carry.
I'm not giving you shit,
Kenneth declared. Oh, but you already have, and I tire of this. The Dread Lord removed his cloak to reveal his radiant countenance. Bow before me. Kneel. Instead of light, the Dreadlord was surrounded by a dark corona. His huge black wings were fuller than Issa's wings, which had been designed for speed and flight as all her kind were. These wings were built for gliding. He was beautifully handsome.
I only kneel before God,
Kenneth said in disgust.
That pretender,
the Dreadlord said.
I wield the true power here and on earth. So many bow to the dark web in servitude, even as they claim they serve the light, he said. It is beautiful, is it not? There are the things that men do to feed my realm, and my children which remove them from grace. The murder of the innocent, the rape of women and children, bloodletting in their not-so-holy wars, the delicious pollution that makes feeding oh so easy, and the self-righteous who spread hate and eat the heart from God's churches in all of the earth's religions. Man against woman, sister against brother, they do my work for me. Sometimes it's rather boring, as I have little to do but rake in the spoils as they point to each other and refuse responsibility for bringing my realm to theirs.
The rebel angel monologued.
Poor thing. Get to the point.
Kenneth wasn't impressed.
The point, General, is that you have done so much for me already that I should reward you with a place at my side. You aren't going anywhere, and I would have someone interesting to talk to. All you have to do is pledge your heart and soul to serve me as my warlord. We will take over the rest of the abyss and break open the pathways to your world.
He stepped towards Kenneth, seeing the desire in the teen's eyes to run him through with the spear. Still, he came closer.
Nice try, Sherlock. I can't pledge my heart. I don't have it with me to give.
Kenneth took that moment to lunge forward, burying the tip of the spear in the dark angel's belly.
You'll have to ask Lord Set for that, and he's not sharing.
The Dread Lord grabbed the spear, impaling him.
You gave yourself to the warrior aspect, did you? Then you are of no further use to me. There is no need for honor or rules here.
He used the spear as a conduit to begin pulling the dark energy from Kenneth's rage and hate into himself. The Dread Lord bent down and looked into his eyes just before Kenneth was drained of tainted life energy completely.
I'm sure Loki will be very angry at the loss of his spear, but you have given me two greater prizes with which I shall take over the multiverse. I now have the Archangel's sword, and by your wielding its power with hate, you have given me the spear of dark destiny. It shall not ensure mankind's dominion, but daemonkind's dominion. Whoever carries it is guaranteed the final victory, and the burning light will be extinguished forever.
Kenneth's senses dulled as his life force was drained to nothing, His empty husk fell over and shattered into millions of tiny pieces. The Dreadlord calmly pulled the spear out of himself and picked up the sword. The balance of power would be forever changed, and the Great War would resume, destroying realms and worlds as the elder race of Dark Angels returned for vengeance. Kibajet clung to her father's warmth and solidity as she sobbed, "No, no, no, no!" He caught her as she fell to the ground. The vision had pulled her under completely, leaving no focus left for balance. Tears coursed their way down her face. Long-fingered hands gently pulled silky strands of black hair away from a face grown pale with shock. "Calm. Focus. What did you see?" Anubis instructed gently. She let out a shuddering breath as she anchored herself once more in the present. Her father's smooth voice centered her. "My vision showed the beginning of the end. I saw the final death take her, my father. The artifacts twisted to dark purpose, and the demoni of the bottomless pit breaking free." Her voice gained strength as she gathered herself, her lips twisting into a snarl. "This I shall not allow." Kibajet accepted Anubis's aid in getting to her feet. Light flared around her as she summoned her armor and her weapon, preparing for the battle ahead. "The Council of the Powers would never approve of such an action. Neither will the High Court of Heaven. The abyss is to remain closed until the appointed time," Anubis reminded his daughter solemnly. "It is their realms and temples at risk as well, and even heaven's gates may fall if no action is taken." Kibajet turned and ran. She could not do what was needed here. Even in desperation, she would never open a gate to the abyss here in the Summerlands. "My daughter," Anubis called. Kibajet turned for a moment in response, catching a small pouch that Anubis threw. "You may find these useful," he told her. Small stones clinked and rattled in the pouch. Tucking the cord around her neck, she jumped elsewhere as soon as she exited the temple. Mist curled and flowed around her. Years ago, Kibajet had carved out a small ritual space along the shadowed edge of the moon paths. It would not prevent demoni from escaping their imprisonment, but it would prevent taint from spreading rampant while she dealt with the task at hand. Vague impressions of trees loomed through the pervasive mist just past the circle of stones. Hardly ideal, but it would do. Taking a deep breath, she tapped the depths of rage she felt at the thought of her friend's demise, the hate at the injustices done to her herself through the millennia. It was the only way she would be able to open a gate to the needed location. Any energies used to create such a construct had to match that of the destination. Fighting abhorrence and nausea, the black energy flowed over her talons as Kibajet dragged them through the astral veil. Gritting her teeth, she continued even as the fabric of the realm screamed with the intrusion. As the gate yawned wider, it tried to suck her in. She fought the pull of the gate even as she expanded it. If she let go, it would start to close as there was no natural taint in this area to sustain it. She had to have enough time to get to them and get back out again. Finally, the hole extended until it matched the circle's diameter, almost 12 feet across. Shifting into her silver dragon form, she dove through. "That's my stick," Kenneth told the demon mildly. He pointed to the Spear of Chaos. "I will have it back." "You can have it when I put it through your belly," the demon snarled. "All the rest of what you carry will be mine. Your horse's entrails will decorate my door, and I will feed his blood to my nestlings. You I will simply throw to the hellhounds." "Nice try, genius," Kenneth smiled threateningly. "One mouthful of Bucephalus's blood would kill your whole nest." I've seen the filth you eat. My horse is too pure for your kind.
Night Death,
The daemon answered. Its dark face was twisted into a snarl. It still faced them, unafraid.
I know who he is. I feasted at the table of his kills unseen in Alexander's day. Blind men plowed their fields under with the blood of their wars, while they comforted themselves that it was God's commandment.
It licked its lips.
Your horse is not as pure as all that. If he were, he would not have been sent back to that pitiful excuse for a mortal realm for redemption. Any spirit can become warped, tainted, or broken given enough pain. Even an angel. Whispers imply that this one has already fallen.
It was the daemon's turn to expose his teeth in a threatening smile. Bucephalus flattened his ears in response.
Besides, where are you going to go? You are as trapped here now as I am. When we jumped here, it was a one-way trip to hell. What's your plan, mortal?
The daemon taunted them, laughing uproariously as if at an inside joke. First, Kenneth replied calmly, I am going to kill you. Then I will kill all your so-called nestlings. As for my horse, he is going to live up to his name and be the death of night.
You have only to examine my words to see I speak the truth,
The daemon attempted to assure him. Barely a partial truth. But here's some real truth for your dumb ass. This is the Spear of Destiny, dickface. You are a dead motherfucker. Kenneth planted his toes hard on Bucephalus' side to tell him it was time to end the conversation and get the Spear of Chaos. In agreement, the big black horse reared to full height. He bellowed, snapping his wings out as he struck forward hard with one forehoof in warning. The daemon hissed in defiance and grabbed a nearby four-legged monstrosity. It mounted and faced them. Hunched and slender, the four-legged daemon proved to be quick. With purpose, the two charged low, snapping rapidly. Bucephalus danced back out of reach and gave it a sharp blow with a hoof. Spinning around cat-like in retaliation, it came in from the side, and the daemon rider swung the Spear of Chaos. Almost, Kenneth grabbed it, but Bucephalus had to scramble away at the last moment to avoid the claws of the daemon's mount. Another daemon sprang at them. It went down quickly to the Spear of Destiny. With his free hand, Kenneth drew the Archangel's sword. Their opponent's mount squalled in pain when the sword tip grazed him. Enraged, it came after them with its rider grinning maniacally. He saw what he thought was an opening, and he directed his mount to come at them again from the side. As Kenneth smoothly spun the Spear of Destiny, Bucephalus saw their opponent's defenses weaken. The beast was favoring its left front shoulder. It pulled up just enough to allow Bucephalus to make a time-honored warhorse move. The stallion neatly pivoted on his haunches and sidestepped. He planted his hooves firmly, then held rock still. The maneuver positioned Kenneth to come sideways up and under the race swing at the perfect angle. He blocked the Spear of Chaos in a thunderous clack with a solid blow by the Spear of Destiny. The resulting explosion was blinding and deafening. Kenneth's ears rang as he was thrown from his horse by the force of the blast in his face. He felt a searing pain on his face, neck, and arms from the heat generated by two artifacts of such tremendous power clashing. He found himself rolling end over end across the hard rocks. Kenneth groaned. His head throbbed, so he lay motionless where he'd landed. The Spear of Destiny and the Archangel's sword were both firmly in his grip, determined as he was not to let go when the spears crossed. Relief that those were intact made him relax slightly. The scent of burnt flesh met his nostrils. Although his face and chest were certainly in enough pain, his neck felt the worst. Upon his first attempt to move, the skin of his neck cracked and bled sluggishly. He managed to roll over stiffly from where the blast had thrown him. Then, looking around, Kenneth took stock of the situation. Enemies surrounded him. They were scattered from the force of the blast. Some appeared to be dead. Others moved and twitched weakly. Bucephalus was nowhere to be seen, which caused a creeping fear to rise in his gut. Looking further, Kenneth saw that there was a white bundle crumpled several feet away. It didn't look as if it belonged in the filth and squalor of this realm. Led by his instincts, he moved to investigate. Kenneth pulled himself by his elbows and knees toward the pale, naked figure. His head was still spinning too much to try to get to his feet. Venom dripped from several bites on his armor and from where it was smeared on his skin. Kenneth ignored it when he realized who it likely was that lay so deathly still. White feathers with a golden sheen half covered her face. Reaching out, Kenneth gently brushed the edge of her wing aside. "Isa," he breathed softly in shock as he looked upon her beautiful face. "How?" He realized she was still unconscious from the blast. He sighed in relief at finding her alive. Flopping loosely, the wing that had curled over her was fine, but the other one, folded beneath her, appeared broken. "God, no!" Unbidden emotion rose in him. Kenneth exclaimed and covered his face with his hands. "Why did it have to be you? Why didn't I see it?" Slowly, the crumpled, dirty angel in front of him stirred awake. He forced himself not to hyperventilate, then resolutely took hold of himself. "Marilou, get up," Kenneth urged her. "This is no time to lie about. The battle isn't over." Carefully he reached out to shake her gently further awake. She moved slightly. With a groan, she opened her striking brown, gold-flecked eyes. Kenneth gasped. He stared at her and felt like he could almost fall into those eyes. Hints of cool blue in her irises reminded him of the Nile River in the desert. It also reminded him of the lapis lazuli that came from the mines he'd guarded for the pharaoh. Those memories came with a yearning for a past he'd tried to leave behind. Kenneth's self-control was nearly undone with her first confused words. "All set?" She attempted to sit up. Grinding sounds came from her broken wing. Waves of pain where the ends of her bones crunched together made her squeal and tense her muscles. "It's Kenneth," he replied. "You're hurt." Marilou favored him with a sour look. "Obviously." "Are you up to using a sword?" he asked her. "I can do anything I have to," she insisted. "This isn't the first time I've lost the use of this wing in battle." She looked over her shoulder above the current break at a large scar from an old daemon bite. "Kibachet healed it well enough for flight." "Who's that?" he asked. "Ka Ali, of course. You remember her?" "Oh, that stuck-up priestess of Bastet you liked?" Kenneth grimaced. "I try not to think about the mess in Egypt." Mary Lou glared at him. "She's my best friend, Ken." She sounded sad. Kenneth decided to settle for something less confrontational. He knew she would argue with him regardless. "Here, let's try to get you up." She squealed again when he put his arms around her to gently lift her to her feet. Sharp pain seemed to radiate through her whole back. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" he asked her. "We need to get moving." Some of the demonia around them were starting to groan and move in more than twitches. He hissed as she leaned on his shoulder for support, concerned about her injuries. Mary Lou almost recoiled in concern. "You're hurt!" she exclaimed. "I'm fine," he responded. "We have other things to worry about now." Kenneth's eyes narrowed as he saw the black marks under her jaw from where he hadn't been quick enough to keep the demon off of her. Black, tainted blood dripped down her collarbone. They looked at each other as a low, throaty growl sounded just behind them. Mary Lou nearly fell, but caught herself. With dismay, she could feel the familiar sensation of the taint seeping in, but didn't have the strength left to take care of it properly. This time, there was no one to burn it out. Kenneth considered his options briefly and handed her the Egyptian Khopesh sword. Here, use this. Anything else? She asked him. Yeah, he said firmly. Don't die. Michael? Mike? Kenneth peered intently up at the rift they'd entered. A little help here? Where's an archangel when you need one? He waited several seconds for a response, then turned his attention to the matter at hand. The Urgermach was still somewhat disoriented, but it recovered quickly from a stumble as it crept upon them. Its vaguely canine head dripped acid over its scaled hide from serrated teeth, and it lashed its serpent tail wildly, seeking prey to bite. At Michael's name, it snarled and sprang at them. The rest of the demoni who weren't killed in the initial blast were circling in agitation. Most of them sought the dark power source that was gone. However, none but the strongest were brave enough to enter the radius of the blast zone. Scenting weakness, the daemon shot forward low to the ground in an attempt to hamstring the angel. It knocked her down, but not before she split its skull with the sword she held. Determined not to go down without a fight, she climbed painfully to her feet again without Kenneth's help. Resolutely, she stood back to back with him, trying to ignore her pain so she could concentrate on the battle at hand. She glared intently at the circle of masked opponents and dared them to come. Kenneth was angry. No, more than that. He was enraged. A little help would be nice, he complained. We were on our own as soon as we came here, Mary Lou whispered, so that only he could hear her. Nobody's coming, she said. They can't. Frowning, she looked dismayed at her wings, but not because of her injury. Her feathers were turning from their natural shimmery white to a dull gray as her light dimmed with the taint in her energy body. She was now in her true soul form, forced out of any shape-shifting to protect herself from the explosion. There was no more hiding any part of her nature. Mary Lou, that was Isa, could not deny her impending end. With darkness beginning to seep through her, she knew it was only a matter of time before she would either turn and become a true creature of evil, or simply fade. Her heart fell. She knew what she had to do. Fine, then, Kenneth said. He ground his teeth. The filth of his bite marks just seemed to give his anger strength. This was at least a familiar feeling. The Spear of Chaos had often whispered to him in his sleep to let his anger free. He unleashed it with a bellow. We will take as many of them down with us as we can. More of the demoni overcame their hesitation. 2 Urgermach, larger, stronger, and smarter than the rest by virtue of their pure-blood demon status, jumped out of the pack, bolstered by a tall, dark-cloaked shadow behind them. The smaller of the two displayed quickness and grace in its feints and false attacks. They toyed with their prey, trying to draw them away from each other for easier pickings. The larger of the two tired of the game and attacked Kenneth directly. A faint whistling sound reminiscent of a firework slowly rose over the din of battle, growing louder and louder. In confusion, several of the demoni looked up. A bright light came from above. Silver fire formed a corona that edged to green as the tainted atmosphere burned. Cries of "Archangel!" and "Run!" rang out as some of the demoni who had heard Kenneth calling to Michael earlier assumed he had been answered. Some of the remaining horde scattered. "Hold your ground!" a deep voice roared above the confusion. Those who had not already escaped froze in indecision at the Dread Lord's orders. Silver draconic wings snapped out just before Kibachet hit the ground, halting her fall. Strong jaws took hold of the smaller Urgermach that had been targeting Isa. With a single flick of her head, she snapped its neck. Standing beside Hosset and Issa with her tail curled protectively around them, she tossed the body of the Urgermach contemptuously at the Dreadlord's feet. She let her fire spill out over her fangs to set her body alight. Continuing the motion, she spun in place, forcing the horde to fall back or be incinerated. She shifted back down to a more human-like form. Shrugging a coil of rope off her shoulder, she threw it at Kenneth. "Hosset, bind her wings." "It's Kenneth," he replied, snatching the rope out of the air. "Kibachet," Issa cried. The ring of silver fire began to flicker and die. Shadows flitted around behind it. Low notes from a hunting horn rang out. Deep roars began sounding further out in the abyss, responding to the Dreadlord's call.
"Kill the interloper!"
The Dreadlord's voice commanded over the screeches of his burning minions. Anubis's daughter eyed him and turned her attention back to those she intended to rescue. "We haven't time to argue. Shadow Drakes will be here soon. Bind her wings," Kibachet told Kenneth urgently. Driven by the threat of the Dreadlord's wrath, a chimera braved the flames. It leaped forward, enraged by the pain of its burning coat. Kibachet swayed to the side and drove one end of her dual-headed spear through its chest. She spun with the momentum and threw the corpse back through the fire. Panicked screeches ensued as the melting daemon impacted its fellows, catching more alight. "Rude," Kibachet muttered. She felt faintly annoyed. She turned her attention to the wall of flames, tinted green now as it burned away the corruption. Anubis's daughter raised her hand. She poured more power into the fire, which caused it to rise far over their heads. "A broken wing is not conducive to flight. If we do not leave right now, we will be spending the rest of our short eternity here," Kibachet told Kenneth urgently. He took the sword of the Archangel and plunged it into the dull stone at his feet. Angel fire spread out from the sword's blade in all directions, bolstering the protective circle. "If you can carry her out of here, I'll tie her up. You two can leave," Kenneth responded. "I have some demons to kill." "No." Issa looked fearfully at him. "I'm not going without you. No way I'm leaving you here to die by yourself." "This argument is irrelevant," Kibachet interrupted. "If we fall here, the multiverse goes with us." Kenneth rolled his eyes at her melodrama. "I will be fine," he declared stubbornly. "I have the two most holy items known to mankind. I cannot be defeated. It is not possible. If you can get out, I'm sure I can find a way after I've cleaned this place up. Here, raise your arms. This is gonna hurt," he told Issa grimly. "The only way out is closing rapidly. Another will not be made. Decide because it's now or never," Kibachet snarled impatiently. She resisted the urge to pace in agitation and looked up at the portal above them in concern. By her estimation, they had another couple of minutes before it closed, and she could see flyers approaching. "Not only that, I won't be able to get any of us out without someone able to fight off what's going to come at us as soon as we're off the ground. I'll have to focus on flight and evasion." She eyed their escape route further. "Unless, of course, you want to fly her out by yourself, General?" Kenneth pretended to ignore Kibachet as he focused on Issa. She gasped in pain, nearly falling to her knees as Kenneth drew her broken wing to her body and wrapped the rope around her. He crisscrossed it tightly over her shoulders, leaving her hands free, but keeping her wings stable. Tears were falling down her face by the time he was finished, and she gritted her teeth to keep from crying out again. "Are you okay?" Kenneth asked her gently. "Just let's get out of here," Issa told him, gasping. "Kibachet can carry both of us. We accomplished what we came for already." Kibachet twisted back into her dragon form, then lay down on her belly to allow them to climb on. She grimaced at the sticky, tarry feel of the ground but against her scales. The ring of fire still burned beyond them, keeping the evil horde at bay for the moment. Kenneth turned to help Isa onto Kibichet's back, then retrieved the Archangel's sword. He saw that the crystalline dragon armor she wore came with a dual saddle. Handholds set just above the front of the wings, paired with the seats placed for maximum balance just behind her shoulder joints. Footholds were recessed in the side of the plating. Taking his weapons firmly in hand, Kenneth climbed on behind Isa.
Hold on.
Kibichet's deepened voice rumbled beneath them as she rose. Tensing all four legs, she pushed off with all of her might, throwing them into the air. The silver dragon swerved wildly to avoid being rammed by a shadow drake as soon as they took off. Kenneth stabbed upwards with the spear of destiny as it passed above them.
Keep them off my wings,
Kibichet told them. With several powerful wing beats, she headed for the portal above them. Kenneth realized the advantage their height and slow climb gave him as he looked down. Milling Demoni jumped and snapped, trying to reach them to pull them out of the air. "Oh, you want a piece of us?" Kenneth asked the masked evil below. "Okay, if you're hungry, eat this." He pointed the Archangel's sword below them, and answering angel fire poured out. It spread wildly as much of the remaining horde of Demoni died where they stood. Not all of the horrors of the abyss were intent on attacking them. Many still slunk in the dark shadows, intent as they were on their own concerns. A mid-level daemon with a dual nature observed everything on an outcropping of stone high above the conflict. Though he was powerful and vicious enough to command others weaker than himself, Adamat was not strong enough to challenge the Dreadlords and their generals. Adamat watched with amused contempt. Unconcerned about discovery, it hissed at the silver dragon from safety. He remembered those three. He licked his lips at the delicious memory of their mortal deaths of the flesh. Each of them was betrayed, hated even, by those they trusted. Afterward, Kibichet had angrily flung him, barely coherent, into the abyss. Yet here they were in his domain. He watched the Dreadlord's pitiful attempts to gain control of the situation and nearly laughed. Kibichet especially had a talent for disordering carefully laid plans, but he knew how to bring them down. This particular plan was going excellently. After all, he was the expert because he knew how to manipulate their reactions. He stopped to consider his next action as he looked with satisfaction at the opening above.
Yes, it worked perfectly,
Adamat hissed. Rather than go down to the Dreadlord's call, the spirit of treachery and betrayal began to climb. If Adamat was quick enough, he could get out of this place. He missed the carnage he could cause in the world above as loved ones turned against each other. It had been long and long since he had been able to satisfy his thirst for blood. The portal was slowly closing, but the daemon slipped through the hole in his shadow form, moving slowly to avoid drawing the attention of anything waiting outside. Direct confrontation was not his way, unless victory was certain. For now, he needed to get clear and plan. The spirit of treachery and betrayal was not the only daemon to notice the limited window of escape. The moving shadows that came through the hole slowly, one at a time, slunk away in all directions. Some hid, and others jumped clear as soon as they reached the edge, heading for the space between, where they could go anywhere in the multiverse to look for easier pickings than what any of the Dreadlords allowed them. In seconds, the slow trickle through the hole became a flood that created a whirling vortex around the circle that held it open so more could come through. The portal widened instead of closing as daemons dragged the taint from the abyss through with them. Not even a brilliant light appearing right over the portal stemmed the tide of Demoni. Mortally wounded, the shadow drake that Kenneth had stabbed with the spear of destiny shrieked as it fell. The air of the abyss was thick and soupy. It resisted Kibichet's climb upwards. Dragonfire burned deep in her throat, cleansing the air as she breathed it. The shadow drakes had no such trouble. They were perfectly at home in their environment. 4 more of them darted and spiraled just out of their reach. 3 came in above them, and 1 dove down straight for Kibichet's right side wing. Issa watched it come with narrowed eyes. "Ain't a me," she told Kenneth over her shoulder. Not enough reach was possible with the Khopesh, and this attack required refined targeting to avoid hitting Kibichet. Issa quickly transferred the sword to her left hand and let go of the saddle. Kenneth steadied her. With the portal open now above her, Issa had access to the powers of light that she couldn't use while she was a horse or closed up in the abyss. While she couldn't heal herself in her weakened state, she did have her natural weapon available to her in her true form. Issa raised her hand and drew power from outside the portal. She hit the shadow drake with a lightning bolt as it came close. Sweeping her hand quickly across her body, she drew the bolt of light to strike the other 2 drakes out of the air. They crisped as they dropped. Issa sagged in the saddle, her energy spent. The outside edges of her wings began turning charcoal gray as the taint started going systemic. Sensing Issa weakening, Kibichet growled,
"Conserve your light, my sister. We will get out of this yet."
The 5th shadow drake drove forward from behind as it sensed an opportunity. Feeling the disturbance in the air behind her, Kibichet lashed her armored tail. Razor sharp, the bladed tip opened her opponent's long throat from chest to jaw. The last of their pursuit fell away. However, just when it looked as if they were going to make it out with no more attacks, Kibichet was forced to backwing to avoid flying straight into the Dread Lord. The purple-winged Archon grinned as he let go of the orb of virulent purple energy he held in his hands. Kibichet shrieked when it impacted her chest. The crystalline plating there cracked as it absorbed most of the damage, and her muscles seized as dark lightning sizzled over her scales. Kibichet snarled and twisted away from another shot, pumping her wings to regain lost height. She gathered her fire, compressing it between her jaws. As the Dreadlord compressed his energy for another volley, she released it in a bright sphere. Although her opponent dodged, she detonated her attack, engulfing his entire right side in flame. Reeling from the impact of the dragonfire, the Dreadlord flew straight into the beam of angel fire Kenneth aimed upward at him with the Archangel's sword. The wall of darkness their opponent threw up to block the dual attack quickly burned away with the onslaught of light. Screaming as the feathers of his black wings burned, he was forced back. Taking the opportunity, the dragon gathered herself. With a final burst of speed, Kibichet shot through the portal with her companion still on her back, amid a crowd of exiting demoni. A brilliant blue light on the top side of the portal was the first indication they were not without aid. The Archangel Michael received his sword from Kenneth, who gladly gave it to its rightful owner. As more demoni poured through the opening, Michael violently sliced and swung, killing them as they exited in a confused swarm. Blinded by the light after the darkness they escaped, they slammed into one another and screamed in pain as they died or were forced to retreat. Kibichet turned quickly and breathed searing flame into the portal. She crisped anything close to the opening before any other demoni could follow them out. The Archangel Michael dragged his sword around the edges of the portal and began to burn it closed. Just on the other side, the Dreadlord screamed in hatred as he too attempted to follow them out. He used all his dark power at his command to force the portal open as the Archangel Michael and Kibichet tried to push it closed. In the last moment, before it was too late, the Dreadlord squeezed his black wings through the portal. He aimed with a power blast at Michael. However, before the Dark Angel's attack struck, another angel interposed himself between them. The dark energy dissipated harmlessly against a curved sword, blacker than the darkest night. The razor-thin blade held an aura of void and annihilation made manifest. Everyone froze in place as the new presence commanded all attention. Kenneth noticed a smug smile on Michael's face. "Hello, brother," the new arrival said silkily in a pleasant, even tenor. He wore a dove-gray tabard over white battle robes. 3 sets of snowy white wings showed his rank as an archangel. He set his boot on the edge of the portal. It stopped moving.
"Azrael!"
The Dark Lord nearly screamed in terror. He quickly folded and clamped his black wings down to his back with the presence of the Angel of Death. He bowed his head in submission.
"Are you here to kill me before the appointed time?"
"Only if you persist in this ill-advised course. You shall have your freedom, but not now," Archangel Azrael told the fallen Archon. The Dreadlord nodded his head in defeat and dropped away into the miasma of the abyss. Once he was gone, Azrael moved his silver boot and allowed the portal to begin closing again. Before it closed completely, the Archangel Azrael waved his hand across the portal. Several small orbs of light flew out and gathered around the Archangel. They listened as he whispered gently to them. Their lights brightened before the sparks of innocent souls sped off and disappeared, freed at last from their prison in the Spear of Chaos. Finally, all was quiet, and the mist gathered around them while the remaining dark shadows slunk away unremarked. Kibachet sank to her belly and laid her head on her paws, exhausted.
"All right, you two.
Off," she rumbled. Issa slid weakly down to the ground, with Kenneth close behind her. Issa squealed as the movement jostled her broken wing. She sat huddled as Kenneth unwound the coils of rope. The Archangel Azrael paused a moment, watching. The Archangel Michael approached with a smile.
"Thank you, my brother,"
Michael said formally. "This was one duty I was glad to perform," Azrael replied. "Long in coming. These souls should be free to determine their own path." He saluted, and with a burst of light, Azrael was gone. Kibachet groaned as she let go of her draconic form. She hissed lowly as she peeled off her cracked breastplate and poked at the spreading purple bruises beneath it. She grumbled. 4,000 years since I forged this set of armor, and nearly as many battles. One trip into the abyss, and it's fried. Somewhat louder, she addressed her companions. I should be fine. You two, however. She opened the leather pouch hanging at her neck and spilled the contents into her left hand. An assortment of stones glittered in the low light. Several stones glowed brightly. Picking out a bloodstone and a piece of charged quartz, she approached Issa. Here, hold on to these while I treat General Ha-Set. Issa took the bloodstone in her left hand to help draw out the poison and the quartz in her right to bolster her fading light. Kibachet poured the rest of the handful of stones back into the pouch. Extending her talons to full length and coating her hands in silver fire, she turned to Kenneth. All right, Ha-Set. Come here. I don't swing that way, Kenneth stated. You're not my type. I prefer my girls, human. Kibachet stared at him flatly. Human? You can get yourself in trouble that way, and you're still as tactless as ever, I see. Before we go anywhere else, the taint has to be burned out of the both of you. What do you mean? He asked her, puzzled. I'm fine, he said. I'm already burned on my neck, face, and arms from the blast, but no big deal. I can throw you right back down into the abyss, Kibachet threatened. She knew he'd missed the point and decided not to waste time arguing. Far more urgent was Issa's light slowly dwindling. You are not stepping foot in the Summerlands with one bit of Daemon taint in you or on you, and you're dripping with it. This is rather gross, Kenneth admitted. I could use a good shower, and God, I stink. Ken, please, Issa said shakily. Can we just get on with this? Looking at Issa with concern, Kibichet strode forward. Rather than burning inwards as it would if Kenneth were truly tainted, the silver fire skated over his clothes and armor, burning off the filth that coated him. Kibichet snorted. Well, that was anticlimactic. I can probably speed your healing, but I can't outright heal the burns myself. The explosion caused this. It's chaos magic. Even worse, the clash between chaos and order. You will likely have scars on your neck. Kenneth raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. I told you I don't swing that way, but at least I'm clean. He looked down at himself and adjusted his clothing. His armor was white again. Rather than dignify that comment with a response, Kibichet turned to Issa. All right, love. You know how this goes. Issa looked at Kibichet sourly. Just get it over with. This part is always worse than getting bitten in the first place. Issa gathered her legs under herself and gingerly sat back. Stalking forward on padded feet, Kibichet knelt before her. Take a deep breath, she requested. Issa gasped in and held it, squinching her eyes closed. Kibichet gently poked her in the stomach. Not what I meant, and you know it. Again, slower this time. Okay, Issa complied, and still not relaxed. Kibichet spread her taloned fingers across Issa's collarbones, then centered her thumbs over her friend's heart. She began purring deep in her throat, hoping that the familiar sound would relax Issa enough to allow what needed to be done. Relax, my sister. I do not wish to hurt you unduly. Kenneth watched alertly in the background, seeing the familiar byplay between the two. It had the feel of a ritual performed many times. Issa slowly released her breath. Beneath her fingers, Kibichet could feel Issa's heart rate slow. Now, breathe and focus. Kibichet directed her fire into Issa's heart. Allowing her consciousness to follow, she hunted the darkness through Issa's veins. Throwing her head back, Issa cried out as her soul sister's talons partially phased through her chest. Kibichet's gentle purring still rumbled through her, mitigating the worst of the pain. Shh, Kibichet encouraged gently. Almost done. The Archangel Michael put a restraining hand on Kenneth's shoulder as his grip tightened on the Spear of Destiny. Easy, boy. It looks gruesome, but let the healer work. The taint gathered itself for one last offensive, almost but not quite sentient, and struck back at the intruder with psychic fangs. Kibichet bared her own fangs with a hiss as she tore her talons from Issa's chest, the darkness caged in her claws. Steadying Issa with her other hand, she incinerated the last remnants. Well, Kibichet commented. That was the worst of it, but we're still not done. Lie down, please. Issa was somewhat more pleased about the opportunity to get rid of the searing pain shooting through her left wing. Groaning, Issa shifted her weight forward. She caught her breath again as she lowered herself to the ground on shaky arms, and the broken bones ground together with a crunch. Kibichet gently took hold of both wings and fully extended them on the ground to either side so that she could assess the damage. Conjuring a white cloth, she laid it over Issa's legs and lower back. To get better access to the bones and muscles of the base of the wings and shoulder, Kibichet sat on Issa's lower back, carefully balancing her weight on her knees. Issa tensed when Kibichet put the initial pressure on the torn muscles of her left shoulder, but relaxed as the healing warmth soothed and knitted the fibers together. Better, Issa said. It doesn't hurt as much if I don't move. It just throbs a lot. Where are the points of pain? Kibichet inquired. That was the worst in my back, Issa replied. Something feels torn on the right side wing, or maybe like I have splinters. The break on the left. Kibichet gently prodded the skin of Issa's back. The pads of her fingers found shallow wounds. If you have shards of the Spear of Chaos in you, then that would explain why the taint set in so fast, Kibichet observed. That would have made you a very powerful daemon if it didn't just outright destroy you. Halfway between the fold by the primaries, Issa told Kibichet, and lifted her graceful wing for the healer to sink her fingers deep under the feathers. Kibichet went by feel to search for debris. Yes, you have one embedded here. I may have to remove the primary to get it out. You just want another one of my feathers, Issa joked. Perhaps I should throw you in the lake of purple again. It was puce, and you know it, Kibichet replied indignantly, disagreeing on principle. She looked to where Kenneth stood watching. Here, Hasset, hold this. I need you to steady her wingtip so I can dig this out before something else goes wrong. Kenneth took hold of Issa's wing. He felt around for himself and also found the splinter embedded there. Are you gonna be able to get this out with those claws of yours? He asked. Kibichet smirked at him. I wouldn't be much of a healer if I let the shape of my hands get in the way. Regardless of that, I got this. You go on and do the other side. He waved her off. Kenneth gently pulled the smaller iridescent white gold feathers back from the wound and delicately picked at the piece of bone-like wood that just barely rose above the skin close to the base of the third primary. You don't need any more injuries. I'll get this out without you losing anything. But what doesn't belong here? He told Issa. Mildly offended, but not in the mood to argue since what Kenneth was doing required steady hands and not energy work, Kibichet moved to the other side. At least he was trying to help, despite opposing her at every turn. Kibichet split the surface skin over a couple of splinters in Issa's back and removed them. Next, she moved to repair the broken wing. Laid out at full length, each wing was 10 feet across, and the general shape was reminiscent of a gyrfalcon. Kibichet knew that in flight, Issa was one of the fastest and most agile of creatures. Not even in Kibichet's draconic form could she keep up with her sister at full speed. The one time she'd seen her brought down in the air by an opponent in battle, it had been by sneak attack. Kibichet had never known an enemy to outmaneuver Issa or run her down. The healing had to be exact to restore full use of this wing. Kibichet sucked in her breath in dismay at the damage. There were several breaks as well as crumpled, broken, or missing feathers. The feathers would have to grow back in their own time, as she didn't have the energy left to restore those. Carefully stretching her shoulder to relieve the tension that had settled there, she set to work as Issa lay still. First, she had to place each hollow bone end to end and carefully knit them back together. Some of the supporting tendons were strained, but intact. A bright glow ran along her hands and down the wing, enforcing the healing and straightening bones. Issa sighed in relief as the pain subsided. Am I going to be able to fly again after this? Kibichet didn't answer immediately. Instead, she ran her fingertips over the length of Issa's wing with her eyes closed. I got to it quickly enough this time to prevent any additional scar tissue. As long as you don't cause any more trauma to them, you will be able to use them in due time, she said. It itches, Issa complained, shifting her shoulders uncomfortably. And I can't scratch. Yes, well, the last time it scarred because you wouldn't leave it alone, Kibichet admonished. The sensation will fade once your body realizes the problem is taken care of. I know, but that doesn't help right now, Issa complained. Kenneth rolled the Spear of Chaos splinter that he had extracted around in his palms, drawing Kibichet's attention. These remnants need to be dealt with, she stated. Well, the only thing that works is the spear of destiny and the blood of Jesus, Kenneth told her. Feel free, Kivachet replied, setting the shards that she had gathered on a flat rock. In response, Kenneth added the splinter he held and placed the spear's tip on the shards. They immediately flared brightly and disintegrated with a loud pop. Okay, so now what? Issa said as she slowly and carefully got to her feet, gathering the white cloth around herself so she would be covered. She tied it like a sarong so it would look like a dress. She held her wings half folded, both sides gracefully curved in an even arc. How do I look? She held her hands out to her sides. Kivachet grinned at her. Like yourself again. Gorgeous, Kenneth answered her question as he admired the subtle play of rainbow-colored light along the length of her heeled wings. However, despite Issa's light, he did not share in their uplifted mood. You know, something bothers me about what you said. If splinters from the Spear of Chaos would have made her a very powerful demon, how many of them running around in the abyss escaped with shards? He asked. Kivachet looked at Kenneth, unsettled at the implication. She felt her stomach drop as she thought about it. Do you have any shards in you? She inquired. Kenneth grinned down at her. What, you can't tell? She just barely resisted the urge to roll her eyes. The Spear of Destiny makes reading you almost impossible. It masks your signature to aura and soul sight. Kivachet began the tedious process of getting to her feet, only to be forced to sit back down as her legs failed her. Gosh, she cursed. Stretching out her fingers, she examined her hand. She could not prevent faint tremors. I don't think I'm going to be going much of anywhere for a while after all that. She looked up as the Archangel Michael approached. You miscalculated, the Archangel stated, staring at Kivachet steadily. There is a reason that one should not stare into the abyss. Kivachet's shoulders hunched beneath the angel's gaze. For the abyss stares back. Just so, the Archangel replied. What is he talking about? Kenneth asked. I had a vision. It was why I decided to jump into the abyss to save you. The seeing was wrong, or someone managed to twist it, Kivachet explained, unable to meet Kenneth's or the Archangel's gaze. She sighed deeply and straightened her shoulders with an effort of will. I would do the same again, she stated with conviction. Even knowing? Archangel Michael inquired. She stood her ground and raised her gaze to meet his. She stared into his eyes with absolute certainty. Yes. He continued to examine her for a moment more before nodding slowly. It is well, he said with the barest curve of a genuine smile. Our Father wouldn't see any not guilty of crimes against creation condemned to the pit. Your actions released innocence as well as the Watcher's spawn. Furthermore, the wolf is now where it belongs. Ulfur shouldn't trouble you further, because he is now imprisoned below. A gate opened in the air a few feet away, and Anubis stepped through. He nodded respectfully to the Archangel. The lower court is demanding your presence, Anubis told Kivachet. He gently picked his daughter up. Kivachet groaned. Right now? Yes, Anubis told her. But I told them they can wait until you're recovered enough to see them at your trial. Oh, good, Kivachet said. So they will at least let me have a last meal. Food? Kenneth perked up. You still can't eat anything on this side of the astral veil if you intend to return to your mortal skin, except for what you brought with you, Anubis told him firmly. The only thing you can accept is the Lethe for memory loss, as that is its intended purpose. But anything else will keep you from going back to Earth.
Yeah, I know. He sounded resigned. That whole Persephone and the pomegranate seeds thing applies.
What do you mean? Kibachet said with a puzzled frown.
Never mind, not your pantheon. Kenneth dismissed her question with a wave of his hand.
Issa added, It's an old Greek story about how Persephone got stuck in the underworld because she ate 3 pomegranate seeds after Hades kidnapped her.
Kibachet lost the last half of her friend's words as she dozed against her father's shoulder.
Come, Anubis told Issa and Kenneth as he stepped through the gate into his temple.
All right, guys, we are definitely not finishing the book tonight. I want to say we have 2 more chapters left to go. Does that sound about right?
I think it sounds about right.
Mary Lou, I hope you enjoyed the way I treated the vision, in my voice acting versus the actual events, where I tried to keep it, soft and a little bit more monotone. Seeing the italics in there, I was pretty sure it was all a vision, so that's the way I was running it in there.
Pontiff? Aw, bummer. I saw Spear of Destiny and was thinking it was the expansion of Wolfenstein 3D.
Nope. We read books here, as it should be. So let it be written, so shall it be done. All right, guys. Well, like I said, I think there are 2... I am glad you stuck around for the listening then. If you did enjoy the story, and for anybody else, if you've missed the rest of the book, this is book 2 of the series. Book 1, well, you had to pick that up yourself on Amazon. Book 2, all of the recorded chapters are available on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius. Our chapters from tonight will be up there a little bit later this evening for your listening pleasure and catching up on anything that you may have missed. So, I believe with 2 chapters left, we will wrap this book up on Saturday. Aren't you guys excited? I know I am excited. It has been really good reading so far, and I have enjoyed the heck out of it. And hopefully you guys have as well. So, yeah, we definitely have a number of pages left. Let's see, we just finished the Abyss chapter, so where are we at? Yep, we have 2 trials left, or 2 trials. We have 2 chapters left, so we will finish those on Saturday, and that will complete our reading of Spear of Destiny. So make sure you come back Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, where we will pick up and read the final 2 chapters, for your enjoyment. The fun isn't over. Yes. But yeah, so like I said, I hope you guys have enjoyed the way I've treated some of the audio on this. The vision that Kibachet had definitely changed. Through the vision, I kept Kenneth's voice entirely as without the southern accent to it, because that's the way I've been treating him with his regained memories from Alexander and his other lives that he kind of had gathered in here. I had him lose his accent and his voice deepened a little bit. When in reality, he basically went up and was trying to rouse Mary Lou as Issa. I had him put back on his general southern accent that he uses in his normal Kenneth form, because, to be able to give that additional reminder. I'd already seen a couple of changes in between the vision and between the actuality, so I was pretty certain that having a change like that made sense to continue to go along with it. So, again, some of the choices that I make in here, it's one of the fun things that I get to do as a voice actor. And for those of you guys who didn't know, I haven't read any of this book before I read it live in front of you guys. I don't read any of it.
Normally at the very beginning, I will page through a little bit just to get a kind of sense of the author's style. Look for some words that may trip me up a little bit. But other than that, I read it all live because I want to experience this with you guys. And so again, I hope that you guys enjoy the way that I am treating some of this in here, and that you guys have definitely enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was really kind of neat when I started, catching the subtle differences in there, and obviously they got more and more intense as they went along. So I thought that was really pretty cool. Um, all right, everyone. Well, thank you all for coming along to join me this evening. Thank you so much to Mary Lou Wells for writing the book and granting me permission to read this for you guys. Thank you so much to editor Kira Holiday for her work along with this. I write my own book. I know exactly how much work an editor has to go into a lot of this stuff to make it good and right. So kudos to the both of them on the work that they have put out here. And of course, thank you to all of you. The greatest gift that you can give me as a streamer is the gift of your time. And I appreciate that you guys gave me the gift of yours this evening, whether it was for 5 minutes or for the almost 2.5 hours. Again, make sure if you have enjoyed this, stop out and pick up book 1 of the series, available on Amazon for you. Stop out and support the stream. The more views that we get, the more of a wide net I'm able to cast for these indie authors who are putting in just tremendous amounts of work into these books and not necessarily getting the assistance with marketing and everything else. So the bigger my reach, the more I'm able to help them as well. So like, subscribe, comment, do all of those fun things to the videos on YouTube. I would appreciate that. That helps to extend the reach that I can give to all of these authors in what they do. And because, Saturday we will be wrapping this up. If you guys have stuck around with me for the entire thing, you guys get through to the very end, and you have not done so already, stop out on Amazon and give it a review. Reviews mean the world to authors. The algorithms and the way they work, the more reviews you have, the better the reach tends to be on a lot of these algorithms. In addition, these authors want your genuine, true feedback. It only helps them to become better authors. It helps them become better storytellers, and it helps to put out a better product for everybody. True and genuine feedback is so important to any author. And I would encourage you, if you have not done so, when this book is over, to give your thoughts. I will absolutely be doing so myself. It's a promise I give to all of the authors who have me read their entire books, that I will provide them with a fair, unbiased review when I am done. Thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. I hope to see a whole bunch of you again on Saturday when we wrap up Spear of Destiny, Finding Bucephalus. Have a great evening, everybody, and I will see you guys all again really soon. Good night, all.